One of the incentives for the Perry campaign to draw on academics was that they wanted to hold consultants and people who were on the payroll accountable for what they were doing. They wanted them to actually establish that there was value added, because campaigns are, multi-million-dollar endeavors. And so the social scientists who were involved in the Perry campaigns designed a series of experiments, as Sasha Eisenberg has illustrated. And we were called up to a meeting at, I believe it was the old Oasis up off Lake Travis, and asked to present our preliminary results. And we had tested the effect of phone calls, volunteer contacts, and mail on fundraising. So all the consultants, the direct mail consultants and the phone consultants were there. And Don Green from Yale got up, did a little PowerPoint, and Don went up and he said, well, there's some good news, and that is that it seems to be the case that the mail program did in fact increase contribution levels, that people got mailed, and then also people who received a phone call, certainly people who received volunteer contacts. It really increased the amount of money that donors were giving to the Perry campaign. And around the room, everybody looked pretty happy. You could see people sort of puffed up and smiles and nods. And then Don Green went on, he said, unfortunately, the control group, that is, people who received no contact, also increased their contribution levels. And in fact, they increased it slightly more than those who had received contact from the campaign. And everybody sort of shrunk down a little bit, and there were people shaking their heads, that can't possibly be. And a lot of huffing and puffing. And Don sort of dropped the bombshell and then took a step back. And then for the next 20 minutes, people proceeded to tell us how stupid we were, how the design was utterly flawed. You couldn't possibly say this with a straight face. And meanwhile, in the background, the Perry people just watched the whole thing unfold with these big smiles on their faces. It was clear that was exactly the kind of challenge that they wanted. And in that sense, the experience was, well, it was a little uncomfortable at the time, but it was incredibly edifying. There was this pushback, and there were good ideas about how to tweak design so that they were more realistic by the standards of the practitioners. But the main effect was pretty indisputable, and that was, attention from the campaign mattered, but, donors sometimes just come to life on their own as they kind of hear ambient noise. They don't necessarily need direct outreach. We've replicated this finding a couple of times. Mode of contact matters a little bit, but you always get pushback from the consultants about what we call the external validity, whether you've designed something that's actually something they would do in a campaign. I love the idea, though, of auditing professionals in politics the way we do in other areas of life.